have some time at the end for questions. We'll go ahead and do our best to answer all of them. A little bit about me. I'm with the DA brand, specifically on large client enablement, as well as large partner enablement. And it's my pleasure to introduce our chief scientist, who is Scott Ambler. Just a little bit about Scott. I've known Scott for a fairly long time. And I think I just want to give you background with sort of the genesis of DA and how we got here, or how DA got here. Scott was working with IBM at the time. This is going back into in the years of the early 2000s, and working with a very large enterprise, sort of pre-agile framework called RUP. So at that time, there was a lot of movement, to be moving towards it. We weren't calling it agile at the time, but we were calling it iterative development. So there's a lot of movement to be breaking projects down and doing them in different ways. And the Scott was responsible for helping implement that different way of working in Toronto at the software group, where they produced a software tool called Visual Age. And he did a wonderful job of that. He was then asked to go to other areas within IBM to be able to expand that improvement across other areas within IBM. Now, a little bit about Scott. What from my experience working with Scott, what really drives him and his passion really is, sort of simply put, to make software development better. Now, the DA brand has expanded well beyond just software, but this is the genesis of it. But what he learned from going to different areas within IBM and within different customer sites later was a couple things. The first thing was that everybody was doing software a little bit differently. Even two teams sitting back to back could be doing things differently. And that a framework in its original state, because of its rigidity and just like a framework tells you the end state of how things are supposed to work. So Scott came up with, and I can almost imagine Scott being on a flight coming back from, a customer site or an IBM site, thinking to himself, how can we do this differently? How can we define software delivery differently so that we can apply improvement model across multiple different environments, different ways people were working? And he broke the software down into a series of elements that later were called goals. Talk a little bit about today. But what it means is it gave an opportunity to apply agile approaches from anywhere in the industry, anywhere they came from, to help to make software projects better and scale agile in very different ways. So I just to preface this conversation with, this is not a competing offering to a SAFe, for example, or any other framework. It's a way that enables every software project to be much better and get faster improvement and faster, ultimately for clients, faster time to market. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to Scott.
Okay, so thank you very much, John. So let's jump into it. So we're going to make these PDF of these slides available to everybody, so you don't have to worry about trying to grab screenshots and stuff like that as I go. So and almost all this material is publicly available anyways. So anyway, so what do we want to talk about today? I'm going to briefly go through what Discipline Agile is and where it's coming from, why you want to take this seriously. Then I'm going to do an overview. There'll be a lot of new concepts there for you, so it can be a little overwhelming, so I apologize for that. And then we'll work through how do you choose your way of working? How do you choose your wow? And this is absolutely critical for your success, particularly for the success of a team in Agile. So what is Discipline Agile? So Discipline Agile became part of the PMI family in August of 2019. Discipline Agile has been around for about 10 years. As John was saying, it came out of some of the work that I led and worked with Mark Lyons, the other co-creator of Discipline Agile when it was at IBM. Mark was a business partner of IBM at the time. And we developed what eventually became what started as Discipline Agile Delivery, focused on software development, but then it eventually grew into Discipline Agile, which is what I'm going to talk about today. So the idea is Dismantle provides guidance. It helps you to make better process-related decisions. It's a hybrid. It adopts great ideas from the agile world, from the Lean world, even from the traditional world, including PMI. So we had always mined the standards and practices of PMI as great sources of information and great ways of working. And our approach in DA, one of our philosophies is that there's no such thing as a best practice. That's wonderful marketing literature, but it really, what we really want is, what we want to do is recognize that all practices, all strategies work well in some situations and don't work so well in others. So, all practices are contextual in nature. So you want to do the right thing in the situation that you face. So as a result, there really is no such thing as a best practice. Might want to talk about fit for purpose practices or fit for purpose strategies, but best is not the right word. And if everybody could go on mute, I'd appreciate it. So just make sure your mute button's actually on. I think the default is to start off mute. So anyways, and so it's a toolkit. We want to help you to improve and to get better and to improve your processes. One of our philosophies, which we'll see later, is that you start where you are. You should strive to do the best that you can in the situation that you face, and you should always try to do better. You should always try to improve, and we'll show you how to do that. So no matter what you're doing now, if you're currently working in a more traditional manner, or if you're doing Scrum or Safe, that's great. That's your starting point. DA can help you improve from there and help you get better. So where a lot of these methods and frameworks sort of wave their hands and say, yeah, it's the art of the possible, and if you do framework X, sell you, then you can improve it and tailor it to meet your own needs. But then they don't really give you any advice of how to do that. Discipline Agile is that advice that's missing elsewhere. So keep this in mind as I'm going through this. So one of the challenges that we see in the Agile community and the Lean community and even the traditional community as well is that it's pretty much devolved into chaos. There's hundreds of great and maybe arguably thousands of great practices and strategies, which is wonderful. But how do they fit together? When do you do each one? When don't you do each one? To what extent should you do them? These are important questions, and everybody's got their own little flavor, they've got their own little method, but none of them really get the job done for you, and then they sort of leave it up to you to figure it out. And that's we can do better. We need to do better than that. It's not it's simply not appropriate anymore. So Discipline Agile is an umbrella over all this good stuff. It's a combination of the work that Mark Lyons and I did, as well as Al Shalloway. So one of the things that PMI has also done is it picked up Al Shalloway's company, Net Objectives, for several reasons. First, he had a heck of a lot of very good IP, but some of it was something called Flex, which we'll see in a few minutes. And we've merged Flex into Discipline Agile because the focus of Flex is on implementing value streams. How do we delight customers? How do we actually work together and optimize our flow and really come to market well with what we're doing, and how do we optimize our way of working, and how do we realize value more effectively? Absolutely critical questions for the success of your organizations, particularly today in the age of COVID-19. It's really sort of thrown all of us for a little bit of a loop. So we're going to have to refocus the ways that we work and refocus our strategies, which we're in the process of doing. So why is Discipline so important? Why should it be of interest to you? So first of all, the PMI is really offering the best of both worlds now. It offers a really solid foundation in the form of the PMBOK guide and the many other standards and practices, which I hope you're all familiar with. But now it also offers Discipline Agile and of course hybrid offerings as well. And as John was saying earlier, we'll start to see in the upcoming release of the new version of the PMP test that part of the test is on traditional approaches of working, some on Agile and some on hybrid. So we really are helping you as professionals to improve your skill sets and to have a personal toolkit of techniques that you can apply in the situations that you face as project managers or program managers or you know, whatever your role happens to be. So as an industry, it really is time to up our agile game. Organizations are growing weary of all these you know, proprietary methods and frameworks that they're good. You know, there's a lot of value there, but they really don't complete it. They really don't get the job done, and a lot of organizations are struggling. There's also a couple of years ago now, Martin Fowler coined the term agile industrial complex. There's a lot of consulting firms and consultants and training firms that are pushing a lot of not exactly ideal solutions, shall we say. So we really do need to up our game on the consulting and training side of things. So you know, the time is right for all this. It really is time to up our game and have credible certification that you need to earn, and that covers the full gambit of as professionals. So what is Discipline Agile? That's a good question. So one of the things we have done in Discipline Agile, it's architected. We've thought this through, and we've invested a lot of work in this, and it's organized into 4 views. And I'll go back and forth between these views throughout this presentation. But one of the views is mindset. So we need to have we need to be agile. You know, some of the marketing rhetoric in the agile community, and it's exactly right, is that, you know, you really need to be agile. You need to have this agile mindset, but you also need to be able to do agile as well. This is also an important observation that sometimes gets lost. So mindset is absolutely critical and encompasses all of, you know, what agile needs to be about. But of course, there's, you know, people are involved. There's roles, responsibilities. There's different ways we can structure our teams, and there's flow. You know, how do we work together? How does the work flow throughout our processes and throughout our organization? How do these value streams actually work? How do our life cycles actually work? You know, so we're doing projects or products teams. How do those teams work? How does it all fit together? And then of course there's the practices as well, and we capture them in something called goal diagrams. So we'll see what that's all about in a bit. So the mindset. Let's start there. We've recently, for those of you familiar with Discipline Agile, we've recently reworked it. It'll be new for those of you experienced with this. Before in the past, we had something called the Discipline Agile Manifesto, and which was great. It was based on the Agile Manifesto, and we'd been expanding it and working on it for many years in order to make the Agile Manifesto applicable to enterprise class situations. You know, make it applicable to business agility and hybrid organizations, and, you know, the types of, you know, what we actually were seeing on the ground. You know, so anyways, and to bring it past, you know, bring it beyond more than just software development as well. So we did that for a long time, but it was really sort of getting old, and it was really getting harder and harder to stay in the format of the Agile Manifesto. So we decided to rethink things, and we said, you know what, if we were to start fresh, and if we had to, you know, if we weren't constrained by the Agile Manifesto, how would we describe it? And so we came up with this. So we believe, and it's this concept that, so we describe the Discipline Agile mindset in terms of principles, promises, and guidelines. So we believe in this collection of principles. So because we believe in these principles, we promise to do certain things, and the promises are all about how are we going to behave as a team, how are we going to interact with each other. So we're going to create a psychologically safe environment. We're going to focus on accelerating value realization. We want to improve our predictability. This is something that management wants, and our executives, our leaders want. And the way we improve predictability is by working together more effectively, and by focusing on optimizing flow, and by attending to the value stream. We want to improve continuously, and we need to keep our workloads within capacity. We don't want to overburden our staff. We don't want to overburden our team. So we're going to be constantly looking at the way that we're working, and the flow of work, and the flow of what we produce, and make sure that it's flowing constantly. So flow is absolutely critical to our success. And then to pull this off, we follow a collection of guidelines, and there's flexibility here, but the guidelines are what we call enabling constraints. And these are what enable us to actually work together more effectively, and to fulfill our promises that are based on the principles. So it's it's a different way of communicating the mindset than what we were doing in the past, but it reflects, I think, the realities of our corporate environments and as well as our public institutions as well. So we really want to have a coherent, solid mindset and foundation from which to work from, and the mindset is clearly part of it. We also choose to observe that organizations are complex adaptive systems. So this is actually a concept that Steve Denning has been talking about for a long time too, that organizations are really teams of teams. It's a network of teams interacting. These teams should be self-sufficient. They should be self-organizing, and they should be allowed and able to achieve their goals, to achieve whatever's been set before them. But we also need to recognize that they're not always whole. This idea of a whole team from the Agile community has never really worked out. It's been observably false from the very beginning, actually. One of the things I do, I don't know if you know, I used to do a lot of research, and still do occasionally, I guess, but certainly in the past I did, and I investigated a lot of claims of the Agile community, one of which was whole teams. And what I found was that 96% of Agile teams are not whole, that they have to interact with another team. So my team, my software development team, might have to interact with the governance people because we're being governed. I might have to interact with the finance people to get money, to get funding for the project. I might have to interact with the release people in order to release into production. So there's other teams that that my team needs to collaborate with to get the job done. I might have to work with the enterprise architects to understand the overall vision. So there's a lot of stuff going on. And that's perfectly fine. If everybody could go on mute, that would be great. There's at least one person not on mute. So thank you. Okay. Probably multiple, seeing there's feedback. But anyways, so there's team, and these teams will be organized in whatever manner appropriate. There's roles within organizations, and it's about far more than just the Agile roles of Scrum Master and product owner and team member and customer or stakeholder. And those are all obviously important roles, but there's architects, there's managers, there's reuse engineers, procurement officers, financial people, many different types of people in your organization, not just the Scrum roles. So we need to recognize this, particularly when we start looking at the bigger picture. We realize that there are some specialties, and rightfully so, and they're important, and they can be Agile too. So let's help them be Agile. So the toolkit itself, it's based on 4 layers. And once again, if you're familiar with DA, this has changed recently with the introduction of the publishing of the latest version of Choose Your WOW. So the first layer, the bottom layer, is the foundations. This is where the mindset lands. Basic concepts around Agile and Lean and even Serial. One of the things we've done, it's a bit of heresy from the point of view of Agilists, but we've recognized, from the very beginning in DA, we recognized that the traditional community did a lot of things right. Yeah, there was a few challenges, but they certainly did a lot of things right. So let's mine those great ideas. Let's take the good stuff out of that and help people understand and help them apply it effectively. So the serial or more traditional ways of working are applicable in some cases. So let's respect that. And the roles and responsibilities and teams. And finally, way of working, which is what the next section in this presentation. How do you actually choose your way of working and do so in an effective manner? The next layer up is the DevOps layer. So this is the combination of what used to be the Discipline Agile delivery layer and what was formerly the Discipline DevOps layer, and it's now just the Discipline DevOps layer. Because what we've found is that there's more to it than software development. Like, you really need to be doing DevOps in order to be able to scale Agile and to be able to support an Agile business and an Agile enterprise and to do business agility. So in many ways, coherent DevOps is table stakes now for organizations in order to truly have an Agile enterprise. And if you're still working on getting your DevOps stuff together, that's great. That's where you are. You start where you are, and you get better from there. But But before you try to start scaling Agile, and to apply it in larger situations and in more complex situations and across the enterprise, you really do need to have DevOps in place in order to, or pretty much in place at least, in order to pull this off. The next layer, the next level up is value streams. So how do we, and this is where Flex lands, we'll talk about that in a second, but how do we delight our customers? How do we bring products and services to our customers in order to serve their needs and to be successful as an organization? So we'll see that in a minute. And then there's the rest of the enterprise. So these other organizational aspects, such as finance and vendor management and legal and asset management, information technology. How do all these groups work? How do you pull off these activities in an agile manner? And because if you're struggling with this, then you're not going to be agile as an organization. You're really going to struggle to serve your customers well. So all it takes is one of these groups to not be well aligned with what everybody else is doing, and you're in trouble. It's like somebody, everybody else is trying to swim, and you've got one group, saying, here's a brick, tie this around your neck as you go swimming because this is convenient for us. So that's the challenge here. So we really do need to be working together. And if you remember back a few slides when I was talking about complex adaptive systems, we're all interconnected. It's this interconnected network of teams working together, and we need to work together effectively. If everybody could go on mute, that would be great. Thank you. So one of the things we do, we talked about in Discipline Agile, is that teams should choose an appropriate life cycle, because there's different ways of working. So one of the things we noticed, and at every organization I walk into, I notice this, is that different teams work in different ways. Sometimes you have project teams. Sometimes you have non-project teams, and that's okay. Sometimes you have very large teams working at scale, like teams of teams. Sometimes you have teams doing exploratory, like new product development, or a hypothesis-driven development, you could call it. Those sorts of things, and that's perfectly fine. Different teams work in different ways, so we want to support that. One size does not fit all. We need to have have a fit for purpose approach to the way that we work. And an important part of that is choosing life cycle. So we support an agile project life cycle, both for software development teams as well as non-software development teams. We support also a long-standing or a continuous delivery team approach to agile. So we might be working in short iterations or sprints, where every week we release, if we have a 1 week sprint or a 1 week iteration, every week we release something into production. Whereas an agile project team might have 1 or 2 week sprints, these 1 or 2 week time boxes, and then every 3 months they release something into production, or every 6 months they release something into production. So that's the difference. And so they, more of a project team approach as opposed to a continuous delivery approach, and that's perfectly fine. Similarly, you might have lean project teams, they fall in Kanban or something like Kanban. You might have lean continuous delivery teams as well, so exact same sort of issue. This is the exploratory life cycle is based on an improvement to the startup approach, like a hypothesis-driven development approach, where you're exploring new ideas, you're de-risking the new product development, basically, or new feature development in the case of big, expensive, risky features. And of course, a program approach. So how do you do a team of teams? So, and this is what methods like SAFe and LESS focus on, this one aspect, and that's great. But there are very few large programs out there. Like, there are large programs, don't get me wrong, and they're important. You want to be good at them, but the vast majority of work is actually in small teams. So your organization might have 1 or 2 big programs. Okay, good for you. But you got a bunch of other little things going on as well. And you got to get good at all that, not just the stuff that certain methodologists want to sell you. And that's fine. So one of the challenges from at a management or like an executive point of view is this message that so our teams will work differently. We'll have agile project teams, agile product teams, lean teams, and so on. And they're all working differently. So my team, I could be on an agile project team, and you could be on an agile project team, but they're different teams. They're different groups of people facing different problems in different situations with different priorities, different ways of working, different ways of thinking, and therefore different ways of working. And that's okay. And we'll have different learnings over time, so we'll improve and we'll evolve our way of working. which is exactly what we want to do. My team should strive to do the best that it can in the situation that it faces, and also try to get better over time to learn and to improve as we go. This is absolutely critical to the success of my team. And same thing for your team, and same thing for somebody else's team, right? This is what we want at the team level. But now think about it from the point of view of management. We have to lead this. We have to govern this. We've got to keep an eye on these things, these teams, right, and what they're doing. So we need a consistent approach to governance. But that doesn't imply we need to force the same process on everybody. This is where a lot of organizations have gotten themselves into trouble on the process side of things. They believe in this idea of repeatable processes. I don't want repeatable processes. That's crazy talk. I want repeatable results. And that is a very different thing, repeatable outcomes. So I want to allow the teams to work in their own way, the way that makes the best sense for them. But I still need to govern consistently. So what we do in Discipline Agile is we show you how to do that. So governance is baked right in. We've solved a very serious problem that many of your organizations are probably struggling with. So we do this through a combination of techniques and greater visibility and all those good sorts of things. But more importantly, lightweight, risk-based milestones. So my Agile project team will still go through the same sorts of milestones that are based on risk reduction, not on documentation creation. Very different things. Your team, which might be a lean continuous delivery team, will also go through similar, the appropriate milestones here, and will achieve them in a risk-based, lightweight manner, and that's fine. So management has a consistent set of hooks and visibility strategies into these teams that are working very differently. So this is absolutely critical to your success as an organization. This diagram is the Dismantle Flex diagram. So as I was saying earlier, we merged Flex into DA to explain here's how you do a value stream. A value stream begins and ends with a customer, and it's constant flow. Value streams go for many, many years, maybe indefinitely. So for example, selling Microsoft, one of the value streams of Microsoft is to sell Microsoft Office. That's been going strong for 30 some odd years now, and will probably be going strong 30 years from now. So, and probably longer. So anyway, so these value streams continue to continue to go on and some end, of course, but many continue on. So how do we do this? How do we make this flow through the value stream from when so customers have needs, we need to strategize on them. Goes through portfolio management. Product management starts to figure out, well, here's how we can fulfill the needs that we perceive in the marketplace. Then we implement them, then we bring them to market, and then we realize value by operating. So by offering, in this case, Microsoft Office on Office 365, and I think you can still get it on DVD. But yeah, so there's different ways that we can offer this product and services around it to our customers, and then of course we get feedback, and it continues on and on and on. So how do we streamline all this? So this is what Flex is all about. So finally, just to wrap up here before I go to questions, how do we choose our wow? So I've talked about this a fair bit, where teams should be allowed to choose their own way of working. They should be, and they should strive to improve, do the best you can, and then improve, learn and improve. So how do we do this in practice? So first of all, frameworks are not silver bullets. They're not the be all and end all. They're not the answer that we're really looking for. They help, but not much. So the challenge with frameworks and methods is what happens when your staff are not sufficiently skilled. So many times an organization will adopt a new framework, a new method, because they want to improve, they want to get better, and they give people a couple days of training or a week or two of training, maybe a little bit of coaching, and then boom, there you go. And then it doesn't work out well. So, and it's because it takes time for people to learn these new skills and these new ways of working, and frankly, the frameworks are fairly disruptive in many cases. So, how do we, what do we do when we inflict when we adopt a framework that we just don't have the skills to pull off right now? It might be a great framework. It might actually would have solved our problem if we'd only been skilled enough to actually pull it off. What happens though if we adopt the wrong framework? Like, these frameworks are great. They all solve a certain problem, but what happens if that's not your actual problem? So for example, what happens in your home tonight? You need to, you've got a broken window, right? You need to fix a window. if your tool is a hammer, probably not the tool you want to be using to fix glass. Well, maybe just to smash it, smash the broken glass out. But then putting the rest of the glass in, hammering on it, not the way to go. So you need to have the right tool, the right framework for the situation you actually face. And if you want to lead, if you want to actually improve your way of working, if you want to be competitive in the marketplace, and frankly with COVID-19, that's gotten pretty critical these days. Um, do you really think you're gonna be able to pull that off just by copying somebody else's approach? Yeah, at best, you're playing catch up when you're doing that, right? So um, this is something we need to start thinking about. So, anyways, Agile framework. So, what is the industry data? So, I'm gonna share some ideas with you, and some industry data from a gentleman that I highly respect. So, when you adopt a new framework, and any new framework, new method, there's an initial learning curve, and this is called the S curve, by the way. And you take a little bit of a hit on learning. It takes you got to get training and coaching, and you make mistakes, right? So your effectiveness as a team goes down. But then assuming that things go well, so let's give credit where credit's due, then things get better, right? So what happens is your productivity goes up, you become more effective as a team, and and the toolkit or the framework method helps, right? It solves your problem. But then you hit the limits of the framework. This is something that Ivar Jacobson likes to call method prison or framework prison, right? And basically what happens is all these methods, all these frameworks, they solve a certain problem. And then once you've applied them to solve that problem, they really don't have much more to help you with, right? So they solve the problem. It's they got the job done. That's great. That's great. What's not to like about that? So, but now you're stuck, right? Yeah, well, here we are. Now we've got this new way of working, and we're chugging along doing whatever this new way of working is. So we're stuck in method prison again, just like we were before. It's just a different method. It's a different method, different type of prison, but it's better than what you had before. So how much better? So there's a lot of marketing rhetoric, and frankly, I don't trust the marketing rhetoric coming from the people trying to sell you something. I would rather look at data. I'm a quant, right? I look at data. I'm into hardcore data. I would rather look at data being provided, coming from somebody that doesn't have skin in the game. So the best source of information that I can find is from a gentleman by the name of Don Reifer, and he did his PhD in Agile. He basically asked the question, how effective is this Agile stuff in practice? I got his PhD in that, so reasonably smart person. And he's turned his research into a business. So he's constantly researching, getting new data, getting updated, all good sort of stuff. And he sells you, he sells you the research. He'll sell you the information. He'll consult to your company. But what's great about him is that he's not a safe guy. He's not a DA guy. He's not a Scrum guy. Not a less guy. He's not in any of the camps. He's above all that. He's outside of the camps looking in, and he's asking, well, how is this stuff actually working? So he's looked at many teams, many organizations, and he's asked the question, well, how effective is this stuff in practice? So what he's found is that the agile methods, like the scrums of the world, work well, and you're getting on average 7 to 12% productivity increase, which is pretty good. But it's not the 5 times, 10 times productivity increase that we're often promised. Yeah, there are some phenomenally messed up organizations and teams that are getting process improvements like that. But it's more than just by, but they've got significant problems, and maybe applying Scrum solves some of them, but doing other things also solve some of those problems. But on average, he's seeing 7 to 12%. For the scaling frameworks, 3 to 5%. So these are averages, and some organizations are failing at these things. Some are getting better. So it's an average, right? So there'll be a range of results, not just the really really good ones that everybody likes to talk about and sort of ignore all the not so good ones. So Don Reifer, Dr. Don Reifer, is looking at the full picture here. So, but still, this is nothing to sneeze at. These are good results. Just might not be as awesome as we're often led to believe. So, anyways, so how do we do that? So I'm a firm believer. Instead of looking at these organizations that are sort of like us, so if I work for a bank, well, let's go look at the often executives say, well, let's go look at what the other banks are doing. I would rather look at the organizations that really scare me, and the organizations that scare me that are doing really well are at the Amazons and the Googles and the eBays of the world. So my advice is ask the question, Well, of these, what are the apex predators doing? What are these really scary organizations that I would be deathly afraid to compete against? What are they doing? How did they get so good? Maybe I should be doing that. That's the way I think. So what are they doing? So they follow an approach called Kaizen. Let's just jump into it. Okay, I'll get back to that. So they follow an approach called Kaizen. And what they do is they have been implementing in small steps for years. They take responsibility for their process improvement. So what happens is they identify a problem. Yeah, so maybe we need to get better at testing. So maybe they held a retrospective, or maybe somebody just realized, hey, we need to get better at testing. So they identify a problem somehow. Then they work through potential solutions. How can we get better at testing? They come up with some ideas. Then they try them out in practice. They give them a try. They say, hey, you know what? This testing stuff sounds pretty good. Maybe we should try it. Let's see what happens for us. Then they assess their effectiveness. This is something called validated learning. You measure, you actually evaluate how well something worked in practice. If it worked well, keep it. Good idea. If it didn't work so well, get rid of it. Don't stop doing that. Right? It didn't work out. Failed experiment. And if you're nice, you share your learnings with your colleagues and other teams. And then you rinse and repeat. You keep doing this. This is the way the Amazons of the world got really good. One small step at a time. Now, sometimes these experiments work well. They've identified new techniques that are going to work well for them in their situation. Sometimes they don't work so well. But over time, after many, many, many years of small improvements, now they're really awesome and they're doing some really cool, scary things that can sometimes be hard to imagine given your current situation. So maybe we should do that. So where does Discipline Agile come in? So how effective is this? So instead of finding themselves in method prison, they actually they enjoy improvement curves that look like this. They keep going on. Now, to be fair, this is really a bumpy curve because sometimes things work out, so you get a bump up. Sometimes things don't work out so well, so you get a bump down. But over time, their effectiveness, the effectiveness of their teams increases over time, and this is exactly what you want. Small proven steps. This is a technique from tool quality management in the 1980s. The fundamental concept in lean. This is a proven strategy, and it's interesting if you read all these DevOps case studies coming from these companies and all these books now and all this stuff. All their advice is the same. Improve in small. The reason why we're so awesome is we've been doing this for a long time and we've been improving in small steps. So they're just further down the improvement path than you are, which is why they're so good. So anyways, so how can we do better than this? How can we catch up to the Amazons of the world? Because that's what we've really got to do, right? So our observation, a couple things. So first, some of these experiments fail, and that's okay, right? This is the only way you learn. You run an experiment, you see if it works, and if it doesn't work. So we often like to say that failing fast. A lot of the Agile consultants will talk about failing fast, which is really great for them. But if you're the person paying those bills, not exactly what you want to hear. And so, and yes, without a doubt, failing fast is a heck of a lot better than failing slowly. But maybe we can do better than that. That is what Discipline Agile is all about. Can we do better than failing fast? So we would rather help you to succeed early. So how do we do that? The challenge is in that second step. How do we get better at identifying potential solutions? How do we get better at identifying potential new techniques or practices or ways of working that will actually work for us? Now, there's two basic ways we can do this. First, which is what the coaches want you to do, and I used to be a coach and I still am, I guess. We want you to hire us, right? Why wouldn't you? Hire an expensive coach. Can you afford them? Can you attract them? Do you even know what they look like? Can you find them and then keep them once you've got them? So coaching is great. I'm a firm believer in coaching. Absolutely critical to your success. But also, wouldn't it be nice if the coaches or whoever it is that's making these decisions of what should we experiment with, if they knew what they're doing? And so we can help you with that with the toolkit. So we can help you understand what your options are. So if we give you better options and help you understand the trade-offs of those options, you can make better decisions. You can increase the chance that the technique you identify that you want to experiment with, you'll increase the chance that it'll actually work for you in your situation. Therefore, you fail less often, so you succeed earlier. And this is the way you get better process improvement. So how do we do this? There's no magic here. So in Discipline Agile, what we do, so the challenge, of course, is that there's hundreds or thousands of practices out there, and you're not a process expert. You're not going to know about all these. Your coaches are not going to know about all these either, right? They're going to know about what they've heard about recently or have tried before. So they don't have the extensive process background needed, most of them don't, in order to do this. So how do we give them the tools that will enable them to help you make better decisions, or help you make better decisions yourself? So one of those tools is what we call goal diagrams. So the way you read these goal diagrams, the rounded rectangle on the left is what we call a process goal. So in this case, how do we go about exploring scope? How do we gather and elicit requirements? The square rectangles are decision points. What intent are you trying to achieve? How do we go about exploring the business process? How do we go about exploring the usage of our solution? How do we go about exploring the user interface of whatever our solution is, and other things, of course. For each of these intents, there's different options. There's different practices or strategies that we could potentially adopt. So, say for example, we're in a situation where our team has brought a new thing to market. We brought a new feature to market for an existing system or a brand new solution. So we brought something to market, and people aren't adopting it. They're not, or at least they're not as many people are adopting it and using it as we hoped. So we have a usage problem. And so we have a retrospective. We start talking about, well, what the heck's going on here? And we realize, what? We didn't really understand how potential new customers would use our system and what they would want from it. We didn't explore usage. Oh, but we did epics and user stories, just like we were told. Yeah, but it didn't get the job done. So the product owner, who did a great job, still didn't really nail down what the requirements were. So what can we do? How can we get better? So we go to the goal diagram and say, hey, you know what? There's different ways that we can explore usage, not just epics and user stories. Wow, how about that? So we look at our technique and I know about some of these things, but some I don't. So what's a persona? I've heard about that, but yeah, I think I heard about that years ago, but I've never really done them. So maybe a persona is the way to go. So what we can, what the heck's a persona? So we go to the toolkit. In this case, could be the book or the online resource, and we look up what a persona is. We also find that the trade-offs, these bulleted list. So now we can make a better decision. So now could it still be, so there's an overview of what this persona technique's all about to give you enough of an idea of, hey, this is something you might want to look into. In many cases, there's references, so you can go and there's great web resources and books about personas. So if you want more details, you can get them. Maybe this is enough. So, but the idea here is, what the techniques are, you've got some options, and what the trade-offs are. So now you can start homing in on potential techniques that you might want to experiment with in order to improve the way that you work. So in this case, personas sound pretty interesting. So let's experiment with that as opposed to one of these other things. So by doing this, by making better decisions, by identifying potential strategies that should work, that we believe will work for our situation, we can improve faster because we have fewer failures. So what we can do, so with either approach, no matter where you are, you can break out of method prison. So like I said earlier, you start where you are. So if you're currently doing traditional work, or you're still working, if you're still doing a serial traditional way of working, that's great. If you're doing Scrum, that's great. If you're doing Safe, that's great. That's where you are. So start where you are. Do the best that you can in that situation. So you're probably already tailoring your approach a little bit anyways. But always strive to get better. So apply guided continuous improvement using the DA toolkit to help dig your way out of method prison, to start improving, just like those scary apex predator organizations like the Amazons and the Googles of the world do. One small improvement step at a time. But with DA, you can do it faster.
Hey, Scott, it's John here. I'm just looking at the time. We're you're at that slide.
Yeah. So give me 2 minutes and we'll go to questions. Thank you, though. Thanks, Mom. Okay, so next steps. So what can you do? And like I said, we'll go to questions in a minute. Well, one way, if you want to learn more about DA, pick up the Choose Your Wow book. The focus on this book is on Discipline Agile delivery, but it goes into guided continuous improvement in great detail. It's available on PMI Marketplace. You can order it today. It's also available on Amazon. As you can see, the Kindle price is pretty darn good. So that would be my suggestion. But yeah, anyways, whatever you like. So you can get both either print or digital. We also have a being released today. There's a lot of announcements going out today, but being released today is a new online workshop, self-paced workshop called the Basics of Discipline Agile. It's scenario based, very very interesting and wonderful product. Um, we're getting rave reviews already. It's really the people we showed it to in alpha and beta testing loved it. All great stuff. So really, and the neat thing about this too is if you go to this site, there's you can take the first module for free and get a taste for what it's about. So something to look at. And then finally, and of course, there's certification. There's the Discipline Agile Lean Scrum Master certification and the Certified Discipline Agile Coach certification. We have some DA/LSM workshops going on virtually in the middle of May, so in just a few weeks from now. The unfortunate news is that they're on East Coast time for these things, so I guess probably 5 or 6 hours off, depending on where you are in the world. But the good news is that if you are interested in certification, there are virtual workshops coming up in just a few weeks, so you can easily get involved if on that path if you want to as well. So anyway, so just to wrap up before we go to questions, hopefully we've been getting questions. I can't see the question Q&A box, but hopefully we're getting questions in the chat box. So Discipline Agile is a rich and comprehensive toolkit. There's a lot to it. I've just briefly given you a taste for what it's all about. It's agnostic, it's professional. It brings a lot of great ideas from a lot of sources all together. It's a hybrid. It really does do a lot of the heavy process lifting that your organization will have to do. With DA, we're going to give you a leg, we'll help give you a leg up on that. We'll help you speed things up, do it a lot better, a lot cheaper than if you were trying to tough it out on your own. So anyways, I hope this has been an interesting webinar for you, and let's go to questions. So if somebody could read out some questions to me, that would be great, one at a time.
Thanks a lot, Scott. Yeah, I can read out some of the questions. So is
Sorry.
Okay,
Sorry,
go ahead and ask the question. Yep.
Okay, sorry. My name is Nelson, the chapter administrator for Africa region. I just wanted to read out the questions to you.
Yeah.
Okay. A couple of them. One of them is about the DA. DA is it a customer or organization centric?
Yeah, I guess so. It's an agnostic toolkit, so your organization would adopt it to help you to serve your customers, to delight your customers better, to help you improve your way of working.
Okay. And is there any difference between DA and design thinking?
Design thinking is an important part of the DA mindset. Actually, one of the guidelines is to apply design thinking. So yeah, design thinking just pervades the toolkit. So yes.
Okay. There's another one which has been repeated, which is how the DA relates to the Agile in terms of training, and what's the difference between the two, the DA and the PMI, the Agile certification?
Yeah. So is the question? Okay, I'm going to assume the question is about what's the difference between ACP, the ACP certification, and the LSM certification. Yeah. So yes, so they're all so PMI offers many certifications. One of which is ACP, which is a great cert, which gives you a foundation in Agile and Lean. LSM takes it up. It is in many ways, I would argue, is the Lean Scrum Master, Discipline Agile Lean Scrum Master takes it. For somebody with an ACP, would take you to the next level and help you to gain practical strategies for applying your good knowledge in practice. If you're an existing PMP, the DALSM will help you to gain those same sorts of skills, but to work in a more agile and lean manner on your projects, or whatever it is what you're working on. So yeah, so we have a family of certifications that we offer at PMI, some of which are the DA certifications, some of which, one of which is ACP, PMP, and many others. So yeah, they all fit together. Um, I'm not really understanding that question. Why? So organizations should be customer centric if they want to be successful, or in the case of government agencies, citizen centric. But a little bit of terminology difference there. Can you say that again? I was getting some internet problems. When DevOps is put on the DA toolkit? Yeah, me neither. So Discipline DevOps is a part of the DA toolkit. Yeah, so I briefly talked about DevOps, but um, our vision of DevOps is for enterprise class DevOps. So I'm not going to go back to the slide, but if you remember, it has development, the dismantle delivery stuff. It also has operations in DevOps, but it also has all the other aspects of DevOps, which other people are also working on. So DevSecOps, security stuff, database DevOps. How do you bring the database stuff in? How do you do release management in an organization that has multiple teams in flight or coordination as well? And that could be all fully automated. We're not saying that that's a group, but certainly it becomes a little harder in larger organizations. How do you do support help desk type stuff in organizations with many solutions and many value streams in flight? So so we're looking at the bigger overall enterprise picture there. Now, if you're a small organization, then yeah, it's all very simple. But if you're a large organization, we can scale to this larger environment. Yeah, so the Choose Your Wow book, actually, I'll go back. That slide's not too far back in the past. So, anyways, so the Choose Your Wow book is our book. We originally had it's an edit, an updated version of the original Choose Your Wow book from about a year ago. For those of you familiar with the old stuff, but it's now offered in PMI publications. So PMI publications right now is selling print versions only of that book for those two prices. And on Amazon, now depends on the Amazon of the country that you're in. So Amazon, so we just released this book last week, and if you know about Amazon, it takes a while for things to move out of Amazon.com into the other Amazons of the world, like Amazon.ca in Canada, which is where I'm from. So I don't know at what point the release is across the Amazons. It is certainly available right now on Amazon.com, the American version. But it's also, I believe it's in Canada now as well. So if it's not on your Amazon, it will be in a week or two, I hope. So, and we have no control over that. This is an Amazon thing. But it without a doubt is on Amazon.com right now for $7.06 American. The answer is yes. So that's actually the fundamental problem that we're taking on. How do you do business agility? And so it certainly includes project management, but it's about far more than just project management. You know, program management and portfolio management and finance and enterprise architecture and vendor management and many other aspects that are all critical to the success of your organization. So yeah, we're looking at that bigger picture.
Send out some of the remaining questions so that you can be responded to personally offline. I will take it back to Ahmad to sum it up.
Thank you, Nelson. Thank you, Scott and John. Thank you very much for the well presented slides. I just want to thank everyone and like to invite Otma for the final wording as well. Otma, can you hear me?
I can. So, hi everyone. Thanks so much, Scott and John, for this. It was really great, really informative, and I think it's given our chapter leaders a deeper understanding of DA. And as we said, the questions will go ahead and answer more, and the slides and the recording will be available. And there's definitely, I would encourage everyone to have a look at the DA basics, just for you to have a good feel, and note that the first module is free to get a bit of a taste of that. So I would encourage you to do that. Thanks everyone for attending the educational webinar. Over to you, Ahmed.
Thanks, Otma. So basically, for those questions that we could not answer, we definitely are documenting those questions, and we will try to get an answer and get back to you individually. As well, we will make sure to have the slides and the recording over to you, and we'll make sure also to get back to you on the videos. So again, thank you, Scott. Thank you, John. And thank you everyone for attending this webinar, and wish you a great evening.
Thank you very much for inviting us.
Yeah, thank you. We appreciate this.
Bye.
Have a great day, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Cheers. Bye.
Thank you.
Microsoft Teams video.